from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I'd like to thank Chairwoman Granger for her leadership and hard work on this critical legislation. Voting for the annual Department of Defense Appropriations Act is one of the most important votes I take each year, and the great bipartisan work that the Chairwoman and the ranking member have done to ensure that our military is fully funded is truly commendable. I rise today to talk about the Allen-Raskin Amendment to H.R. 6157. The bipartisan amendment allocates $10 million to the Defense POW Missing Persons Accounting Agency to assist in identifying unclaimed remains missing since the Korean conflict. As of today, there are almost 7,700 total personnel missing and unaccounted for since the Korean conflict. One of those still accounted for is Private First Class Ivan Roberts, a proud native of Georgia's 12th Congressional District. On November 5, 1951, Private First Class Roberts and 3 other men from Alpha Company 5th Cavalry Regiment went missing during an attack to secure a Korean Hill complex. Although I never had the opportunity to meet Private First Class Roberts, I was able to meet his family and loved ones at a recent memorial ceremony in his honor. And I know that he was a beloved hero and patriot whose family wants peace and closure. As you may know, in the recent historic summit between President Trump and North Korea's Kim Jong-un, President Trump asked the North Korea to return remains of U.S. service members lost in the Korean War, and Kim Jong-un agreed. There are currently over 200 missing service members in the process of being returned to the United States. My colleague and I want to ensure that the Defense POW Missing Persons Accounting Agency has the resources it needs to identify the remains and carry out this important mission so that families can finally find an eternal resting place for their loved ones. I'd like to thank my colleague from Maryland, Congressman Jamie Raskin, for joining me in introducing this important amendment, and I urge all of my colleagues in the House to support the Allen-Raskin Amendment. With that, I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. Who seeks time in opposition? Gentlelady from Texas.
I claim time in opposition, but I do not oppose the amendment.
Gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
The Defense POW MIA Accounting Office performs tireless work to track, locate, and recover our fallen heroes, and I thank them for their continued efforts. Like my colleague, I support this important program. That is why the bill includes $10 million above the budget request to accelerate efforts to return our fallen heroes home where they belong. An additional $10 million will allow the program to continue to be successful. Therefore, I support the gentleman's amendment.
Gentlelady, yield back. Reserve.
I reserve the balance of my time.
Reserves. Gentleman from Georgia.
Again, I would like to thank the Chairwoman and Ranking Member for their work on the Department of Defense Appropriations Act and for approving an additional $10 million above the President's budget request to adequately fund this important mission. It's important to note that this amendment is offset by reducing other accounts. I urge passage of the Allen-Raskin Amendment to ensure that the Defense POW Missing Persons Accounting Agency has the resources it needs to identify remains since the Korean conflict. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.